right, welcome to another Friday night episode of Keto Rocks Radio. I'm Jim Hobbs, and to my left or right is my carnivore co-host, Brian Damage Forsythe of the band Kix and Rhino Bucket. And tonight we are honored to have a very special guest with us. I'll introduce him in a second, but I want to kind of give you a little bit of his background. He's a health coach who helps people achieve high levels of health. He specializes in heart health and autoimmune issues. So he also helps you for those people who are looking to struggle to lose weight or with diet and exercise. And have you been going to a doctor your whole life and you're just not getting the answers? You're not feeling any better? Well, this is the guy that you want to reach out to. So it's our honor to have on the show, Dr. Stephen Hussey. I'm sorry. Welcome to the show.
Good to be here. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. So tell everybody who may not be aware of your story a little bit about your background and what got you down this road. And we're just going to shut up and let you share your pearls of wisdom.
Cool. Yeah. So I think like a lot of other people like me, it was kind of my own health journey that got me into this kind of stuff. And so from a very young age, I was diagnosed with a lot of inflammatory conditions, everything from asthma to chronic hives to irritable bowel syndrome to terrible allergies, things like that. And eventually ended up with autoimmune type 1 diabetes when I was 9 years old. And so, my parents and I were pretty dependent on the medical system for the treatment of those things. It wasn't until college when I started to realize that it was the way that I chose to live my life that had an impact on my ability to manage those conditions, which I'd never gotten from any of my doctors. It was always just, the medications and eat whatever you want and just take these medications and things like that. And so I started to figure that out for myself and decided that I wanted to become some sort of medical practitioner. And I'd seen chiropractors my whole life and decided that that's the route I wanted to go. I learned very early on that having type 1 diabetes predisposed me to heart disease pretty heavily, 2 to 4 times increased risk because of those higher blood sugars that no matter how hard I try will always be higher than the person without type 1 diabetes. And so throughout college and medical training and just my own individual research, I've really focused on heart disease and how I can help prevent it, even though I have this predisposition to it. And so, I don't know, about 3 years ago, I started sharing, the information that I come across, and people seem to like it, and they were gaining from it. So I decided to keep doing it, and I wrote a book about it. So that's me. That's where I started anyways.
Well, awesome. I mean, the fact that you're speaking out about something that you have gone through yourself, I think lends a ton of credibility to you. At least it does from somebody from my perspective. But I also know when you go against the status quo, you can also receive a lot of negative attacks from those people who feel like you're attacking what they're doing. So have you come across any of those attacks during this journey of yours?
Well, yeah, I mean, there's always the people who want to discredit something that they don't agree with. And that's fine. They're at a different place in their journey. And I'd say that people, I wouldn't say attack me, but they write me off or discredit me for, say, I'm a chiropractor, not a cardiologist, or things like that, or I don't know, various things like that. And then my biggest thing recently is that, an animal-based diet is what I think is the healthiest for humans. And I've come full circle because, I tried a vegan diet once a long time ago, and, saw some improvements, but also saw some issues that I had with that. And so, a lot of trial and error, because I guess the point is that I didn't get any of this direction from my medical providers growing up. And when I asked them for answers, I didn't always get them. They didn't always have the answers. So I had to go find them myself. And so people who would, attack me, I've lived through all this, and I've found what works best for me, and that doesn't mean it's going to work best for them. But I've kind of lost a little bit of faith in the medical system because it's very it's become narrow-minded. It's very focused on getting a diagnosis and then giving a treatment for that diagnosis, and those treatments are usually drugs or surgery. And those are very helpful in certain situations, and emergency situations specifically. They can save your life. But as far as chronic disease goes, our Western medical system is failing us pretty significantly. And so we need to look for other ideas. And so, if people look to discredit what I'm saying, they might want to try some of these things for themselves and see how it goes before they can fully discredit it.
Well, we would totally agree with you there. One of the things that we talk about on the show all the time is just go carnivore or keto for 30 days and just ask yourself, do you feel better? And take notes of all the stuff, all the aches and pains you had prior. We think that if you truly will do it for 30 days, you'll notice a huge difference, and you'll start to see improvements. Unlike, look at Brian. Brian's gone to doctors, and they want to put him on cholesterol statins because his cholesterol is high. But the reality of it is, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but cholesterol is not a disease. Cholesterol is an indicator of your way for your body to be fighting something in your body. It's there to protect you, not to harm you.
Yeah. The whole idea that the cholesterol single-handedly causes any sort of disease or disease process doesn't make sense from a fundamental level. Right. When we talk about just how the body works, we don't know how the body works entirely, and I think that it would behoove us to be wise to that and be humble about that, and realize that the body does things for a reason. And the devil's advocate would say, yeah, cholesterol is there for a reason, but what about when it gets high? But the studies show in people who have genetically high cholesterol that they don't die any sooner than people who have normal cholesterol. And in one of the studies, the authors noted that those people with genetically high cholesterol who did die sooner, it was due to other lifestyle factors that damaged the body, but also damaged the cholesterol in turn. So that's things like smoking and drinking and high stress and poor diet and things like that. And so we have to qualify, is cholesterol good or bad? And in my opinion, based on all the research I've looked at, there's nothing that indicates that cholesterol is the cause of a disease. It can contribute to a disease process if it itself becomes damaged. But then we have to ask ourselves, what causes that damage to cholesterol? That's the real culprit. And the answer there is oxidative stress, which can be caused by lots of different things. It can be caused by high amounts of psychological stress. It can be caused by poor diet, diets with toxins and vegetable oils, things like that. Toxin exposures, like various, all the man-made toxins we're exposed to. Lots of different things can cause oxidative stress in the body, and that's the real culprit that's causing damage. And then cholesterol is used to help repair that damage, and it's been kind of framed because that happens. So yeah, you're exactly right. It doesn't make sense. And the whole idea that cholesterol was kind of pinned or framed on was based on some faulty research done in the 50s and 60s, where they used the lowest quality evidence, and it kind of stood the test of time, even though it was disproven. And it's kind of the idea we're stuck on, unfortunately.
Yeah. It's one of those things that, it's like a rumor that got started and it's been repeated so many times, people just believe it after a while.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, Brian, what's your cholesterol when you go get your cholesterol taken? What's it, Brian?
Well, mine is extremely high, actually. But the last time I'm due for another lab series, but the last time I did it, I did this experiment where I tried to tweak my diet just to see what it would do to my numbers, and it kind of tweaked it kind of weird. But my last blood test here. Actually, I pulled it up earlier because I had a feeling I was going to be asked this question. Mm-hmm. But my total cholesterol is 843. but my HDL is what, 99, and my triglycerides are 89. So, it's the LDL, but I ramped up the fat right before my tests, which I probably shouldn't have done. So I need to take it again and just do my normal diet and just see what the real numbers are, because it definitely tweaked it in a weird direction. But yeah, when I tell people those numbers, they freak out. But I mean, I've had my CAC score done and it's 0, and I'm not overweight. I work out pretty much every day. But yeah, so I mean, I know, all those the myths about cholesterol. It's just weird. It's just like this standard, and it's led me to, like, just, I don't even have a doctor at the moment. I don't have health insurance. It's just, to me, it's like the system is so screwed up. I don't even want to participate anymore.
Yeah. It's really good for, like I said, emergencies, but as far as chronic disease, and I tell people sometimes that, you should never let a piece of paper with blood work on it tell you if you're healthy or not, because if you're feeling the way you feel and you feel health, and maybe it's the best you've felt in your life, I don't know, but your blood work comes back and things are quote unquote out of range, the blood work's telling you that you're sick, but you don't feel sick, and blood work is good for some things. It can tell you if things are really wrong in certain situations, like if you have life-threatening infection or some kind of systemic disease that's happening. But in that case, you would very likely have symptoms too. You wouldn't need the blood work to tell you that something was wrong. Whereas this, we're letting the blood work tell us something is wrong because these standards have been put in place, and unfortunately, the history suggests that those standards have been put in place through heavy funding from companies who have a vested interest in that standard. And so that would mean that, the lower the recommendation is for what cholesterol should be, the more drugs can be prescribed for people. And so, pharmaceutical companies have been very aware of that over the years. And there's actually documented proof that this is what's happened, that they've funded the lowering of those guidelines so that more drugs can be prescribed and more people can meet the recommendation or meet the standards for needing a prescription. And that's just, the capitalist society at work, I guess. But, when all that stuff is proven wrong, it's kind of, conniving that they didn't admit that it was wrong. And we're still stuck in that system. And it's just that is the system that Western medicine is. And so people really need to learn about this and learn about their health and take charge of their health and stop outsourcing their health to this system, because it doesn't always have health in mind. It has, lack of a diagnosed disease in mind. But I can't tell you how many people have come to me saying, I have all these symptoms and my doctors tell me I'm fine. They've done all this testing and nothing's abnormal, but I feel terrible. And so there's reasons for that. And it just goes to show that blood work can't tell us if we're unhealthy, and it can't really tell us if we're healthy all the time. It's always something I look at, but it's not the end all be all, and it doesn't give us all the answers.
Yes.
So do you treat your patients at your chiropractic office? Do you also give them, how does people want to, if they didn't want to go for chiropractic care, or do you integrate chiropractic care in your overall health regimen for a patient of yours? How does someone come to you, and like Brian, let's say Brian says, a doctor says, well, we got to get you on a statin because your cholesterol is way out of whack. And he's, well, I'm not going to do that. I'll go see you. How does someone reach out to you? How does someone become a patient of yours?
Yeah. So I work in a very, neuromusculoskeletal based clinic where I treat, shoulders and spines and things like that. And, very orthopedic, conservative orthopedic. But I also, within our clinic, I have a metabolic health program where I help people, I test their blood work and help them achieve better metabolic health. And that's for people that are right here in this clinic, but I also do online health coaching. And people can contact me, and we just have online sessions where I kind of coach them through whether they want me to interpret their blood work or whatever. I help them get healthier. So lots of different ways, depending on where people are. Yeah.
Now, do you have a website so people can go to do this?
Yeah, my website is resourceyourhealth.com. People can find me there, or they can find me on social media. It's Dr. Stephen Hussey. for my social media handles, and people can contact me there as well.
Awesome. And how many patients are you currently working with? I mean, the ballpark.
I mean, online clients, I probably have about, 5 to 8 right now that I'm in consistent contact with. And then in the clinic, we have probably about 15 to 20 in the metabolic program. And then I have lots of, obviously, chiropractic patients. That's the main gig. So
now, how are you feeling? If you don't mind if I asking, how old are you? Because you look very young.
I'm 34. I'll be 35 on Saturday, actually.
Happy birthday. You and Brian share a September birthday.
Nice.
Yeah, mine's next Thursday.
Nice.
So how are you feeling health-wise now, since you've had the issues growing up? But
I feel good. Yeah, so I'm happy to say that all those inflammatory conditions are gone. I haven't had allergies or asthma or broken out in hives or had irritable bowel syndrome since a long time. And I fixed those things just eating a more whole foods diet, not necessarily being keto or paleo or vegan or anything like that. Just eating more whole foods fixed most of those issues. But I still have the autoimmune type 1 diabetes. That's kind of collateral damage that happened that will kind of stick with me throughout life. But yeah, I mean, I'm always trying new things and trying to improve my health. And I feel the best I've ever felt. I always say that. I always try and get to the next level, especially as I get older. Yeah, I mean, I feel good. And I work really hard to manage type 1 diabetes. My last A1C was in the low 6s. I think it was a 6.2 or something like that, which for type 1 is pretty good. But I'm always trying to get it lower. I'm always trying to find ways to hack that and get it lower. So, but yeah, I mean, I feel good.
You mentioned something, and I don't hear very many people talking about it, but the seed oils that are put in almost everything you pick up at a grocery store. It's just, and it's so, in our opinion, and what I've read and what Brian shares, it's just like a poison to your body. It causes inflammation. What have your findings found, and why do you think the seed oils is kind of, no one's talking about it? No one talks about like when you're having, whether it be salad dressing or even just trying to find a blue cheese dressing that's just pure blue cheese, you will find they put seed oils in those.
Yeah, I had a patient the other day come in and ask me about her supplements, and her supplements had seed oils in them. Like the omega-3 supplement she was taking actually had seed oils. So yeah, they're very pervasive in society. Yeah, the idea that, I mean, seed oils have only been around as far as food consumption goes for about 100 years or so, maybe a little more than that. And they originally developed as like engine lubricant. And they found that people could also consume them, and they were cheap. And so you could put them into foods in place of other sorts of fats and things. And so they just became, ubiquitous in our food supply. And the problem with them is that, they're mainly, well, there's two issues. If we look at it as polyunsaturated versus saturated fat, these seed oils are high in polyunsaturated fats. And that was thought to be a good thing because these polyunsaturated fats, they lower cholesterol. When you consume these, they lower cholesterol because these are plant fats. So they're full of phytosterol, which is plant versions of fat. And then cholesterol is the animal versions. And so when you eat these, it lowers cholesterol. And so the whole idea that lowering cholesterol was good for heart health was the main idea. So it was thought that these oils were good. So things like margarine, which is vegetable oils, are marketed as heart healthy because they lower cholesterol, not for any other reason, really. Because when you actually look at the studies that were done back in the 50s, 60s, 70s, there was 4 or 5 different studies done throughout the world that actually replaced saturated fat with unsaturated fat with these vegetable oils in the diet, found that the people who replaced, who ate the most unsaturated fat actually had the highest all-cause mortality, the highest rates of heart disease way back. And this was back in the 60s and 70s, yet we're still told today that it's healthier to eat these polyunsaturated fats. Now, that's not to say that our body doesn't need polyunsaturated fats, because it does, but it does not need them in the quantities that people are eating them. And when we have these vegetable oils, pretty much, almost the only fats that people eat are these vegetable oils, then your body gets way too many of these polyunsaturated fats, these omega-6s. And so the key is to have the right ratios. So there's this whole, I guess, movement or recommendation that you need to take a ton of omega-3 fatty acids in the form of these fish oils and things like that. And that's, I don't necessarily agree with that. I think that's a marketing strategy by these supplement companies to say, oh, take all these omega-3s. Omega-3s are also important, but the real problem is there's too many omega-6s, and it's about the ratio. So rather than try and jam all these omega-3s in the form of a supplement into our bodies to balance out the omega-6s, we could just stop eating the omega-6s. And that'll even out the ratio. And in reality, if you look at a food like a steak or just any kind of beef, especially if it's grass-fed, but even if it's not, it has the right ratios of omega-3s to omega-6s right there. That's what we need. So just eating those things and sticking to getting your fats from whole animal food sources is going to get you the right ratios.
Yeah, well, that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
Brian lives a carnivore lifestyle, so he's getting his perfect balance. But it seems to me ratios is the key to everything. Including your cholesterol, everything is about ratios, and it's just not so black and white. And you just can't pop a pill and that pill is going to sit there and make you well. Especially, as you said, if you have a family history of a certain high blood pressure, heart disease, and it feels like you just got to deal with it. But the reality of it is, if I'm understanding what I've read so far about your books and what you've published, you do have the ability to take control over your life, basically heal yourself by what you're consuming, and let food be the healer of your body, or fuel the healing that's going on in your body, or that your body was designed to do.
Yeah. And that's, I think, empowering for people, when you, because most people, like I said, they're outsourcing their health to their physicians. And there's nothing wrong with that. But if your physician's telling you things that aren't true, or that they don't even know because they've been trained in a certain way, and that way is not, the best way to achieve health, and you don't know any better, you're just going to follow those recommendations. So that's why I say the most important thing for people to do is to educate themselves, and start to get to know, their health, and start learning about health. And it can be hard to do in this modern day and age because we all have jobs and lives and things like that. And we focus on being good at one thing, and that's our job, or a few different things. And sometimes health is not a part of that. So it's just one other thing we have to add to that. But it's really, really important, because no one cares more about your health than you do, or shouldn't anyways. And so you've got to do that work. And so if you go to the doctor and they say, okay, here, take this medication, and come back and see me in a few months or whatever, like, they're probably not going to think about you until the next time you come in, right. And that's no fault of theirs. They're not a bad person. It's just that you have to realize that no one's going to be thinking about your health every day except you. And so you can't just, follow someone's blind recommendations. You've got to do the work and figure out what works for you, and create that health for yourself.
Yeah, we say all the time that you have to be your biggest advocate. You have to be your biggest health advocate. You have to go out there and do what you just said. Go out there and do your own research. You find somebody who's living out a lifestyle that you think is beneficial, and you see that it's beneficial to them. Ask them what they're doing. Brian gets asked all the time, what's he doing? Or just by the way he lives his life, people see what he's doing. And then when they start asking him questions about, cholesterol, well, my doctor says if I eat all this red meat that you eat, that I'm going to, have high blood pressure, heart disease, have a heart attack, stroke out. But the reality of it is, we have a mutual friend who was just on the show about a month ago, and he's literally living a keto carnivore lifestyle. And he went to his doctor and got his lab work done, and he's lost like 40 some pounds from last time. And instead of the doctor's looking at his blood work, and he's telling us that I'm feeling better by living this lifestyle. Yet the doctor's beating me up, says I'm still obese, and goes after him because of his lab work. Yet he's beginning for the first time to feel better himself. And he felt attacked by this physician, this doctor, over his lab work, when he was like really hoping he would get, that a boy, you're going in the right direction, but that wasn't the case. So
yeah, and it's kind of crazy because it's just that you don't fit the mold, and if you don't fit the mold, then they don't know what to do with you, and it's almost frustrating for them. And unfortunately, I feel like that's the state of a lot of things in the world today. If people think and start thinking, and they think that the mold is not what you want to be, and they start going outside the mold, they're ridiculed or they're or whatever. And so it's the same case within medicine. If you say, I don't want to take those drugs, I want to do this a different way, or I don't believe that that's best for me, or whatever, or that cholesterol is bad for me, that doesn't fit the mold. And lots of times sometimes you're almost either scared into doing it, or you're ridiculed into doing it. You're made to believe that you're harming yourself and that kind of stuff. And those are the tactics that that are resorted to when people start thinking for themselves and find the truth.
Right, and unfortunately, most people don't know any better, so they assume that the doctor knows best. So when the doctor uses those scare tactics, they actually believe that stuff. I mean, the last doctor I went to, this was probably 3 years ago. She was a young doctor, so I guess she was still, trying to practice what she was taught, and I sort of described it as, she was just reading from the script, and I went to see her, and I mean, I've done so much research into the cholesterol thing. I know what it's supposed to look like, and mine wasn't even that high back then, even. But I remember that's the first thing she wanted to put me on a statin drug, and it was so funny because I called in. I had my lab work done, and then I had to call her to get the results and discuss the results. And I'd been to her office, and I did the whole thing. She weighed me, took my blood pressure, did all that stuff, and everything was perfect. And then when she calls me, or when I called her to get my results, the first thing she wanted to do was put me on a statin, and then she went through that whole list that I guess she sees so many patients, she probably didn't remember which one I was, but she's telling me to exercise more, lose weight, exercise more, eat more whole grains and fruits, all the list that they give you, and it's just that was like after a string of doctors. I kept trying to find a doctor that would go along with what I was doing, or at least understand what I was doing, and that was the last straw. I was like, nah, I just, I know what it was. I tried to sort of combat what she was saying. I said, well, I'm not going to do a statin, and she goes, well, what are you going to do to change things? And I'm like, nothing. I'm not going to change anything. I'm on the right path here. And I mean, I could hear the frustration in her voice. She didn't know how to respond to that. And, I guess, being a young doctor, she didn't want to go against the system. She couldn't, I guess, their hands are kind of tied in that way. But, yeah, it's frustrating for the doctor and for me. So I just sort of, at that point, I just said, well, I'm just going to do it on my own from now on. So that's what I did.
Yeah. Well, in like most medical practitioner schools, whatever type they are, it's very, I guess it's very cookie cutter, very recipe like, what they learn on how to practice, so and that's what she saw. She got the blood work, she got the things she needed, and based on that, you do this next, and then based on that, you do this next, but there's nothing there that says, what if the patient doesn't want to do that next, and then the problem with that is that there's no training in like critical thinking. It's just like, let's think about this. Is this recommendation appropriate for this patient? Is it even the right recommendation? Is it even backed by science? And there's no critical thinking. They're not trained like scientists who want to question everything and find the answer, as long as they're not paid off by some institution or whatever. But that's what I think of as like a scientist. And our medical practitioners, most of them are not trained to be scientists with critical thinking. They may have it somewhere. They're very smart people, but they're just not trained to do that in the job they're going to do. Even my training as a chiropractor, it was very cookie cutter. It's like, this is what you look for, this is the testing you do, you get the diagnosis, and this is what the treatment you do, and that's just kind of how it is. And if you really want to find, the right answer, though, you have to think critically, and question everything.
Yeah, and you can't blame the doctor for that, really. I mean, that's
right.
what they were taught. So yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, you have to be your own advocate.
Yeah,
sure.
they're worried about their license. If they don't do the standard of care, sometimes their license can be threatened. So there's a lot of things holding this system in place.
Yeah.
We had a doctor on as a guest early on in our programming, and that's what happened to them. They yanked his license because he wasn't following the protocol that he should be following.
Right.
And he got blackballed. And so but it's amazing. Brian recommended a book a few weeks ago, and I'll just hold it up real quick. And in reading that book, we had, my wife and I were supposed to take some friends out boating on Monday, and when we picked him up, he wasn't doing well. He was like slurring his speech. He was like he was drunk, but he hadn't had anything to drink. And so we rushed him to an urgent care facility, and his fiance is a doctor of veterinary medicine. So she knew that something wasn't right with him. So we rushed him to the urgent care. They immediately called the rescue squad and had him transported to a hospital, to the emergency, because and this is back to your point, Dr. Hussey, his vitals were all normal, and he passed out 3 times while they had him under their care. And I started thinking about what we had read in this gut and physiology syndrome book about when your gut is there's if it's not in alignment, there could be foods causing your body to ferment those carbohydrates into alcohol, and a person literally becomes drunk. However, they haven't had anything to drink. So I remembered that, and I said, hey, you know what? Most doctors are not even aware of how your gut truly impacts your total health. And I'm reading this book right now that, what you're explaining to me, because you sound drunk, you act drunk, but you haven't had anything to drink. And then his fiance started to go through like his days every time he has an episode like this. And she's like, every time he has an episode like this, he is consuming, whether it's sugar or carbohydrates or a starch. And so matter of fact, I bought him the book. It gets delivered to him today. And so he's meeting with his doctors at UVA now and definitely now he's making himself more aware. He wants to read about this because it's the only thing that made sense to him at the time. But, if Brian wasn't such a student in reading, so he's the best advocate for himself and sharing that knowledge, I wouldn't have ever picked up that book and read it, because I'm sure no doctor, and I haven't even stayed at a Holiday Inn Express. So the reality of it is, me sit there, all I can do is share what somebody else taking the time to share, like Dr. Natasha Campbell McBride has, and like you. So and Dr. Ken Berry, there's these people. There is a rising movement of people who want to do the right thing. And you could say it's coming against big pharma or the pharmaceuticals or the medical profession. But until people arm themselves and educate themselves with true sources, not the sources that have been bought out by Kellogg's or studies been done to sit there and say, oatmeal is a great morning breakfast and it's heart healthy, not knowing the other ramifications that it's causing on your body.
It'll lower your cholesterol. That's what they always say.
Yeah, it's just like, the number of people who I've known over the last few years who have been diagnosed with cancer and go for radiation and chemo. They go there, and what do they get served? They get served sugar. And what does cancer grow on? Sugar. So it doesn't take a rocket scientist to realize, well, wait a minute, if it grows on sugar, why are they giving me sugar?
So because they don't know.
Yes,
and the system is just
they don't
fueling itself.
So if somebody you take anybody in the now. Where's your practice set up? What state are you in?
Yeah, so our chiropractic practice is in Virginia. We're outside of Roanoke, Virginia.
Wow.
Okay. Good. You're a little 5 hours away from me, but I'm in Virginia as well.
Yeah, nice.
Probably closer to Brian, actually. He's in Tennessee. So, but if someone wants to reach out, they go to your website. And you do some type of consultation.
So people can either schedule through the website. And the first, I do like a little 15-minute kind of intro call, see if it's a good fit, and if it is, then we'll schedule a consult where I'll see about their issues and help them out.
Great.
That's awesome. Talk about a little bit about my background. I can remember my parents. My dad was in the Navy, started going to a doctor, and they started in the 70s because he had high blood pressure. They put him on vegetable oils, margarine. He used to eat, the thing is, the crazy part is he used to be pretty healthy because he ate a traditional Southern meals. He had fried chicken, eggs and bacon every morning, grits, all that stuff he had. And then next thing you know, my mom's giving him, he can only have eggs once or twice a week. And it's got to be margarine. We're no longer buying butter. Whole milk's terrible. Got to use skim milk, and oatmeal in the morning with a grapefruit. And he never recovered from that type of treatment. He just got worse and worse. And eventually he had a heart attack at age 55 and died.
Yeah. Well, those vegetable oils is what drives the insulin resistance that creates high blood pressure. So it makes sense that's what happened.
Yeah. And so for me, I have high blood pressure, and of course, they want to sit there and put me on all these statins and stuff. And I can, very much remember going to my last physical that I went to, because my wife says, was going to see a physical at age 55 because she just had this big fear that I was not going to make past 55 since my dad didn't. So we went there to the doctor. The doctor just went down that litany, that plethora of just, what they're going to tell you, not really hearing what you're saying. Like, hey, what do you eat? I said, well, I eat pretty much a keto carnivore lifestyle. He goes, well, I want you to, get rid of all red meats. You're going to, take the skin off the chicken and blah, blah, this. He starts to oatmeal in the morning. And it was all the stuff that my research has shown is not good for me. Right. And then he turned around and told my wife, if he doesn't start doing this, he's got a 10% chance he won't be here next time because he's just put himself at risk. And I said the same thing. I said, and he wanted me to give me some shots. I said, look, I'm not doing it. I said, you haven't heard a word I said. You haven't. Look at you compared. If you live that lifestyle, look at you. You're more healthier than I am. I mean, he was overweight, and I'm not saying that to be mean. I'm just saying that, if what you're saying works, then why are you that way? And the reality of it is, the only thing is a number. And I always told my wife that. I said, look, that's just a number. It wasn't until we went she forced me to go to John Hopkins to have the head cardiologist look at my tests and I'll do all this. And, thank God he was an honest person, because he literally said, look, I'm just going to be honest with you. We don't really know what causes high blood pressure. He says, I got plenty of people who are in their 80s who feel well, who test out, because he ran all these litany of tests on me, everything. And I came out clean on all of them and good in all of them. He says, I know plenty of people who are well past their 80s who have your type of high blood pressure, but nothing's ever wrong with them. And I can't tell you if that's good or bad, but I'm not going to also tell you that what you have is bad, because obviously I've run all the tests on you that I could run and you're fine. Some people's bodies are different, and we just have to recognize that. And that's one of the things I like about what you said, at least on your Facebook page, about, everybody's different and everybody needs to be treated as an individual, which is the reason why when I was asking that question, how many people you're seeing, sounds like to me, you're really getting to know your patients and have a one-on-one relationship. So you know exactly who they are, what they're dealing with, and so you can best help them.
Exactly. Yeah. You got to get to know them. Otherwise, you're just shooting in the dark.
Yeah.
Now, does insurance cover that, or is that something that's just totally out of pocket?
No, it's all out of pocket. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Well,
which these days is much cheaper than insurance anyway.
Turns out.
Yeah.
That that is for certain. So, is your mom and dad still living today?
Yeah, they're down in North Carolina, where I grew up. Yeah, they're still, and they're happy and healthy.
No, I was born in North Carolina. What part of North Carolina?
I grew up in Morganton, North Carolina,
Okay.
which is kind of near Hickory.
Yeah.
And then I was born in North Wilkesboro, North Carolina.
Okay, some good barbecue around there.
Yeah, definitely.
All right, it's that time of the evening where we get a chance to check in with Mr. Brian Schenker of the Meat Tribe YouTube channel for Meat Deals of the Week. So, Brian, what do you got for us this week?
Hey guys, so I've got a couple of deals from Food Lion. They've got some 73% lean ground beef for $2.49 a pound. And they've got some choice grade boneless sirloin steaks for $7.99 a pound. And their deals run through September 28th. Aldi's has a couple, or Aldi, they have a couple of deals. They've got some boneless grass-fed sirloin roast for $5.99 a pound, and they also have some 73% lean ground beef for $1.99 a pound. And
Oh, really?
Yes. And I can't remember if there's a limit. Sometimes Aldi limits you to like 4. So, you and Peggy will go out and get 8 and then go to the parking lot and then go back in and get 8. I'm sure.
She'll get in one line, I get in the other line. We'll get what we need.
And then Harris Teeter's got some rancher grade ribeyes on sale again. Small packs for $9.49 a pound and the value pack for $8.99 a pound. I know you picked those up for the retreat, so those are going on right now through the 28th as well. Oh, same with Aldi. Their deal is through the 28th. Okay. And then they've also got there at Harris Teeter the Strauss grass-fed New York strip steaks, and those are per package $9.99. So some good deals at Harris Teeter. They're strong. They're always having really good deals on meat.
Yeah, those are some good specials right there.
Yep. And then last but not least, Brian's store down there, Kroger. They've got some 80% lean ground beef for $2.49 a pound. Choice grade bone-in T-bone steaks for $7.99 a pound.
Ah, okay.
All right, that's worth hearing. So what else do we have from you? That's it?
That's it. That's all I got for you this week. Not a lot of deals out there. Well, I mean, that's quite a few though. The Aldi deal and the Harris Teeter deals are my favorite deals this week.
No, I'm heading to both of those stores right after we finish recording this. And since you're in PA, why don't you stop by Linda's favorite store and get some meats?
I'm not that far north in PA though. Gettysburg is right over the Maryland border, and her stores, the Carnes Quality Foods, are more central gotcha. PA. So okay. Yeah, I would love to take a trip up there though. I'd probably break the bank though.
Well, we don't want to do that for you. So anyway, well, thanks for those deals. And if people want to catch what other deals you may have out there, where can they find you, Brian?
Yep, I'm over on YouTube at Meat Tribe, all one word, no spaces. When you get there, subscribe to the channel, like the videos, click on the notification bell so you'll be notified every time I upload a new video. Also on Facebook, and I typically do my post for the complete meat deals of the week on Fridays. I typically post that.
All right, awesome. Well, thanks again. Have a great week, and we'll see you next Friday.
Sounds good. Take care, guys. Be safe.
Thanks.
Yeah.
So your eating lifestyle is you have no one square that you kind of fit in, or
no, I mean, I've tried a bunch of different diets in the past. Like I said, I did vegan like almost 15 years ago, and then I mean that didn't work. And then I did paleo, and I've done a carnivore diet, and I've done ketogenic, like purely ketogenic diet, and now I eat what I call a metabolically flexible diet. So yeah, I include some carbohydrates, but it's my diet is centered around animal foods. That's always gets the priority. That's what I'm going to get the most nutrients from. That's what my body's going to be able to absorb the best. And I kind of fill it in with plant foods, but it's always centered around animal foods. And that tends to work for me because even if you're metabolically flexible and you have some carbohydrates, you'll continue to make ketones just fine. And so that's the important thing, is that you stay metabolically flexible, and you can do that on a bunch of different diets. So I think it's important not to get caught up in dogma. Do what works for you. And if it's giving you the health result you want, then who am I to argue with it, you know? But if we identify some problems, or if you're noticing some problems, it's important to stay open-minded and change, because that's not working for you.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Brian, do you have any more questions for Dr. Hussey?
I should have been more prepared here. No, actually, you've pretty much covered it all, really.
Cool.
Well, we thank you for joining with us this evening. And, if someone's out there who's been dealt a death sentence by your physician or doctor, or you've been told that this is, because your parents had it, your grandparents had it, you're going to have it, just going to have to deal with it. So just take the statin to give you the best chance. I would highly recommend you go to his website and fill out a form to get that consultation. And so thank you for taking time out of your busy day and sharing your knowledge with us. It's greatly appreciated. And keep doing what you're doing, and we'll definitely be putting your website in the show notes here so people can click it and come visit you.
Cool. Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. Well, have a great day. We will look forward to hopefully we can have you back on again at some point.
For sure. Yeah.
Yeah. It's
awesome.
Nice to meet you.
All right. Have a great day.
All right. See you guys.
All right. Okay. That was interesting, Brian. What do you think of that?
No, it was very interesting. Yeah, I've noticed, it seems like the chiropractors, they seem to go that direction, and maybe it's because they're not, they're not like they don't have to follow the standards that most doctors have to follow. And I have my chiropractor from California that I used to go see. He's the guy that he put me on the inversion table therapy when I had sciatica, right, and cured that. And I went back to see him. It was right when I first started my keto journey, and I was reading up on the whole cholesterol thing. I went to see him I was having some elbow issue or something, and we just started talking, and he was into this whole thing too early on, and he was the one that almost, like, I had just started on the cholesterol thing, so I didn't know, I wasn't educated yet, and he was the one that told me. He was the one where I first heard that what you eat doesn't affect your, how they always demonize the eggs because they're high in cholesterol. Right. And he was the first one to say that, no, it's like what you eat doesn't affect your blood cholesterol. And in fact, how did he put it? I don't know. It opened my eyes. Right. But it was funny, him being a chiropractor, he didn't have to worry about, giving doctor advice like a regular doctor and getting his license pulled for it. So
yeah, I think chiropractors actually, because they believe the body can heal itself. They just believe that you have to be in aligned with your body, put your body in the best alignment, and your body's designed to heal itself. So I think that's probably why they're more open to non-medicine.
Right, because they're looking at it from the inside out, like healing the inside instead of dumping drugs onto the outside,
Yeah, it's just amazing. It was amazing, like this past week, to actually be there at the hospital, and the doctor doesn't know what's going on with my friend. And my friend just checked himself. He literally pulled the IV stuff out and just said, all right, I'm out of here then. I don't need to be sticking around to sit there and have you do a bunch of tests that you don't know what you're doing. When you have no idea, I can go do that on my own. But the reality of it is, if I had not read that book and it had not been fresh in my mind, that's an issue that most people are not aware of. Very few people have it, but when I shared that with him and his fiance, she's like, well, it makes a lot of sense, because now I'm thinking about every time this is where he's, every time he's had starch or carbohydrates, that's what's happened.
Huh,
So
that is
it's just
interesting.
true. Yeah. So like I said, I ordered that book for him and it gets delivered to him today. But if your guys are watching this show out there and you guys have have issues that really not been addressed, you're not feeling as good as you think you should be feeling, I would say, man, that's the kind of guy you want to reach out to, is Dr. Stephen Hussey. You want to reach out to people like that who are not trying to put you on a statin drug or do an operation on you, that they want you to be able to heal, or give your body the best chance to heal itself, because your body is that intelligent. It's made with a just amazing design to heal itself. So let your body have a fighting chance of do what it was designed to do, and don't
Yeah.
damage it.
Well, I was going to add to that. I was going to, or like Dr. Barry always says, your body's not stupid.
Yeah, right. It's not. And yet, especially when the more I read this book and the more how I realize how important your gut is, and your gut to be in balance. And like all diseases, not some diseases, all diseases stem from your gut being out of line. And once you start to realize there's that correlation, there's the correlation is you got to have balance. And when you have balance in your gut, your body's able to withstand a lot of stuff. But when you don't, it can go downhill really quick. Not in the way that you want it to go either. So,
Hmm. Yeah.
so
And I can attest to that, because having bad guts my whole life.
yeah. And, in my, and Peggy's dealt with that. Peggy has dealt with that her whole life as well. And she's just now beginning to understand that she still has setback. She eats something
Mhm.
wrong, and all of a sudden she's like, man, why am I paying a price for that? But you live and learn.
Yeah, yeah, it's an ongoing process.
So, well, hey, so everybody probably wants an update with the band and where you guys are playing next. And I know the New Jersey date got canceled, and but that wasn't because of you all, if I understand correctly.
Yeah, well, it's not canceled, it's postponed. But
Okay.
yeah, 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 well, this day and age, like everything is kind of, you can't rely on anything. And I think they ultimately had to move it because, well, for one thing, like ticket sales are affected by this whole COVID thing, because now like some venues are requiring proof of vaccination and all that stuff, and people, they're not going to shows anymore because they don't want to deal with that. And I guess this venue was hit also, was one of the, like all entertainment industry venues, they've been hit hard by the shutdown. And so ticket sales are slower than normal. And so they had to sort of take the more expensive shows and move them.
Shelve them, yeah.
Yeah, so that's pretty much what happened this week. But the last few weeks for us have just been like, oh, one thing after another. And it's like September was like this jam-packed month, and it just, now it's all like it ended up being maybe 3 shows, out of the whole month that we've done. So it's just it just seems like once we just get going again, stuff starts shutting down again, and it's just it's frustrating.
Yeah.
And of course, I mean, of course, people have heard, the COVID thing sort of made its way into our camp. So, that caused us to have to postpone the first few set of shows, and then the other ones ended up, the venues postponed them for other reasons. But people are probably thinking it's, still, sometimes they think it's us doing it, but in some cases it was, but most cases it's the venue
Gotcha.
postponed.
Yeah. Well, you just, I'm going to go back to the words of Dr. Hussey. Is the reality of it is, you can't let numbers define your health. You can't let somebody else tell you how you're feeling. And that goes for everything. To me, you just can't stop living your life. You can be smart about how you live your life, but you just can't stop living. We just can't be in a box and say we're just going to stay here. because that's the best protocol for us right now. It may be temporarily. I mean, you don't want to, I mean, I think you guys definitely made the right call on the early shows to take precaution, but I know people who don't even want to go outside their house. Like if I say, hey, let's go out, grab a bite to eat and get caught up, they don't want to leave their house. They're terrified about, I don't want to go outside. They don't want to leave. They don't want to meet at a public forum as a restaurant. They're just, they're obsessed with the media. And I think psychologically, it kind of like, it does make you afraid. I mean, if you sit there and just believe that as the gospel.
Yeah, you end up in this little bubble, and you're being fed this one-sided information. And and like getting back to the thing that I said, your body's not stupid, I mean, that's how your body learns how to deal with stuff, is being around stuff,
Yeah. I mean, and one of the things that I think is sad, just going through this week with your friend being rushed to the hospital, is they would even let anyone in. They finally decided to let his fiance in, but that was it. Like Peggy and I had to go sit out in the car in the hospital garage, for 4 or 5 hours, and wait for them. And I was reading they had on the front door who's allowed to come in. Like if there's nothing wrong with you, you're not allowed to come in. If you have a family member in there, one family member is allowed per day. And if you are a child that's being admitted, both parents are allowed to attend. But that's it. If you're not a child, then you can only have one visitor for the day to visit with you. And I was just like, wow, it's just so different the way life is, because human touch and love and hugs from your loved ones only helps your body to recover. And to deny people that based on fear is just, it's troubling what I'm seeing happening play out before our eyes. And I'm not saying one way or the other. I'm just saying, there's a lot that I think, bottom line, this is what I'm saying. You can't let fear rule your life.
Yeah. Well, in the situation, with hospitals, it's probably a little different, because
Ability.
and the hospitals are probably the most unhealthy place to be. As far as like, the germs and all that stuff, but in the sick people, because that's where all the sick people are.
All right. Well, let's just go with that. So if somebody's watching the show for the first time and you want them to stay out of the hospital, what should someone do to give them the best fighting chance, Brian?
Well, I know what works for myself. Eat your meat. Yeah, with your shirt. I'm not wearing that one.
And I absolutely second that. So with that being said, you guys have a great weekend. Stay safe, stay well, stay out of that hospital, and we'll see you next Friday night. Take care, everybody.
be shaking, but it's there for the taking. So